Démosle la bienvenida al señor Michio Kaku.
Thank you. Well, after such a great introduction, I can't wait to hear the speaker myself. First of all, I have a confession to make. Sometimes all these honors can backfire. Recently, New York Magazine chose me as one of the 100 smartest people in New York City. However, in all fairness, I have to confess that Madonna also made that same list. And next year, they tell me that Lady Gaga is going to push me off the list entirely. Now today, I'm going to talk about the future, your future, the future of jobs, medicine, our society. Now, it's dangerous to talk about the future. Let me quote from that great philosopher of American baseball, Yogi Berra. Yogi Berra once said, quote, "Prediction is awfully hard to do, especially if it's about the future." Well, I'm a physicist. We create the future. We physicists invented the transistor. We invented the laser. We helped to create the internet. We wrote the World Wide Web. We also invented television. We invented radio, radar, X-ray machines, microwaves. We physicists also created the space program. We created the GPS system. And we physicists love to make predictions. When we helped to create the internet, one physicist predicted that the internet would become a forum of high art, high society, and high technology. Well, today we know that 5% of the internet is pornography. But that's because teenage boys log on to the internet. Just wait until the grandmas and grandpas log on to the internet. Then 50% of the internet will be pornography. And before I begin, let me tell you a story. Over 200 years ago, we had the great French Revolution. And one day, there were 3 gentlemen about to have their heads cut off at the guillotine. A priest, a lawyer, and a physicist, just like me, about to lose our heads to the guillotine. They put the priest's head on the chopping block. And they asked him, "Do you have any last words before we cut your head off?" And the priest said, "Yes, yes." He said, God shall set me free." Well, all eyes were on the blade. Everybody was watching the blade. They raised the blade. The blade came down, swish, and stopped right before he hit the neck of the priest. People gasped. They had never seen this before. And so they said, "Let the priest go. Today, God has spoken." And now let's see about the lawyer. Well, they put the lawyer's head on the chopping block. And they asked him, "Do you have any last words?" And the lawyer said, "Yes. Maybe the spirit of justice shall set me free." Well, all eyes were on the blade. They raised the blade. The blade came down, swish, and stopped right before he hit the neck of the lawyer. This time, the crowd went crazy. They said, "Today, God has spoken. Justice has spoken. Let there be a holiday." And now let's see about the physicist. Well, they put the physicist's head on the chopping block, and they asked him, "Do you have any last words before we cut your head off?" And the physicist said, Yeah, I got some last words. And he said, I don't know too much about God, and I know even less about the law, but I do know one thing. If you look up, you'll see that the rope is stuck on the pulley. And if you remove the rope, the blade should come down real good. Big mistake. Big mistake. The rope came down, the blade came down, and the poor physicist's head came down. And it just goes to show you that sometimes we physicists have to know when to keep our mouths shut. Nonetheless, let me now open the mouths of 300 of the world's top scientists who are inventing the future. My last book, The Physics of the Impossible, talks about the next 500 years. Well, we might have starships, we might have teleportation, maybe even time travel. But my latest book is called The Future of the Mind. I'm proud to say that 2 months ago, my book hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. It is the #1 book in the United States right now. In this book, I talk about telepathy, reading minds, telekinesis, moving objects with the mind, recording memories, all of which we can do today. But before I begin, some of you may be saying, you cannot predict the future. You cannot predict the past. Nobody predicted the crash of 2008. Well, that's not true. You see, where does wealth come from anyway? Ultimately, wealth comes from science. Science is ultimately the origin of wealth. But wealth and science comes in waves. Sometimes these waves create bubbles. Bubbles on Wall Street. And when these bubbles collapse, you get a depression. So let's talk about history, and then let's talk about the future. In the 1800s, we physicists created the steam engine. That created wealth, locomotives, textile factories, tremendous wealth. And that wealth went into the London Stock Exchange to create a bubble, a huge bubble. The bubble popped in 1850, creating a huge depression. That crash of 1850 was so severe that it gave birth to a philosophy called Marxism. But we physicists are also restless. We created the second wave of wealth: electricity, magnetism, and the internal combustion engine. That created wealth, and it went into creating a bubble, a huge bubble on Wall Street. And that bubble crashed in 1929. And now we have the third wave of wealth: high technology, lasers, computers, the space program. And it created a bubble, a huge bubble. The bubble in America went into real estate, and that bubble crashed in 2008. And in Europe, it's creating a bubble even today. The bubble in Europe is in maintaining the Mediterranean lifestyle. The Mediterranean lifestyle is not sustainable, and it is crashing even as we speak. So here's the question for today. The first wave was steam power. The second wave was electricity. The third wave is computers. What is the fourth wave? The fourth wave will generate wealth and prosperity into the future. That wealth is in the form of biotechnology, nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence. These are the engines of wealth. So let's say a few things about Moore's Law. Moore's Law simply says that computer power doubles every 18 months. Now look at this chart. Today, if you get a birthday card and you open it up, it sings, "Happy birthday to you." There's a chip in your birthday card that sings to you. According to this chart, that chip has more computer power than all the Allied forces of 1945. Hitler, Stalin, Roosevelt, Churchill would have killed to get that chip. And what do you do with that chip? You throw it away in the garbage. And now, look at 1969. In 1969, we put 2 men on the moon. But if you look at all the old NASA videotapes, how much computer power did they have in 1969? 64K processors. Your cell phone today has more computer power than all of NASA in 1969 when they put 2 men on the moon. You're not going to put me in one of those rocket ships. I'm not going to go into outer space knowing that I'm backed up by 1 cell phone. It's criminal what we were doing. And now, look at 2020. You now know the future. In 2020, the price of chips will be 1 penny. That's the cost of scrap paper. Bubblegum costs more than computers in the future. So computers will be everywhere and nowhere. Where is electricity today? Electricity is under your feet, in the walls, in the ceiling. Electricity is everywhere and nowhere. The word electricity has disappeared from the English language. That's the future of the chip. Chips will be everywhere and nowhere. In the walls, the ceiling, your clothing. It will disappear. The chip will be everywhere and nowhere, creating wealth, jobs, prosperity. So where will the internet be in the future? Well, realize that paper also evolved from papyrus to the book. Paper today is everywhere and nowhere. So computers are like paper. Computers of the future will become invisible. So where will the internet be? In your glasses. These glasses are more powerful than Google glasses because they recognize people's faces. How many times have you bumped into somebody like at a conference like this? And you wonder, who are these people? In the future, when you see somebody, their biography will be next to their image. If they speak to you in Chinese, you will see subtitles underneath their image if they speak to you in Chinese. How many times have you been at a conference like this and you bump into somebody and you say, who is this person? I know this person. It's Jim. No, it's John, Jake. I know this person. In the future, your glasses will say, it's Jim, stupid. You see him every year. Every year you see him. And let's say you're at a cocktail party And you know there's some very important people at that cocktail party, but you don't know who they are. In the future, you will always know who to suck up to at any cocktail party. But children demand this technology. Children are the driving force to make the internet everywhere and nowhere. Not just your glasses, but also eyepieces, shining it directly to the retina of your eye. Eventually, fashion models will be everywhere and nowhere. This is the future of your home office, the future of your entertainment, everywhere and nowhere. But there's a problem. A problem. Let's say you don't wear glasses. Let's say you don't like glasses. Then what will you do? In the future, you will blink and you will be online. And who are the first people to buy internet contact lenses? College students taking final examinations. They will blink and see all the answers right there in their contact lens. This is how you will recognize people's faces. If they speak Chinese to you, you'll see subtitles. Subtitles underneath their image if they speak Chinese to you. You will always know who you are talking to, what you are looking at. You will have the universe inside your contact lens. Also, husband and wives will connect their contact lenses. And so husbands will see what their wives are seeing. If the husband always buys the wrong groceries, the wife can tell the husband, no, you're buying the wrong thing, because they communicate with each other. Now, this is called augmented reality. Augmented reality is when you see information everywhere, everywhere you look, everywhere you talk to, information. This is different from virtual reality. Virtual reality is for children. This is for adults. Now, you've seen this before. There is a Hollywood movie where you've seen this before in the movies. What Hollywood movie talked about augmented reality? Here is the former governor of California. This is Arnold Schwarzenegger. And when he sees a victim, he sees a biography next to their image. Who else is interested in this? NASA is interested. Because in outer space, you cannot see the blueprint. In the future, astronauts will see what they are doing in their contact lens. Who else is interested in this? The military. The military already has a working version of this. This is not science fiction. The military has an object about this big. You put it on your helmet, you flick it over your eye, and boom, you're on the internet. You see the entire battlefield right there in your lens. So this already exists. So what this means is we're talking about the digitalization of life. Life, one by one, is being digitalized. For example, money. This is money of the future. You will simply point and click, and you will buy things in the future. Money is being digitalized. In fact, in the future, when the internet is in your contact lens, you will simply blink and buy things. And this is the future of your cell phone. This is the cell phone of the future. Today, if you try to type on a cell phone, it's very difficult. In the future, we will have intelligent paper. We will scroll out as much intelligent paper and type. on this paper and then fold it up and then put it in your pocket. So cell phones will have unlimited access to keyboards and screens. And this is the future of paper. We can now make paper intelligent. We can make yards of the stuff. In fact, this is the future of wallpaper. In the future, wallpaper will become intelligent. Today, if your wallpaper is old, discolored, stained, what do? You suffer. That's what you do. In the future, you talk to your wallpaper and it changes color. This is also the future of medicine. Today, if you feel sick, what do? See a doctor? It's expensive. In the future, you will go to the wall and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall. Mirror, mirror on the wall. I want to talk to a doctor right now." Boom, RoboDoc appears. RoboDoc is animated, accesses the internet, gives you medical advice almost for free. This is the future of medical care. A hospital inside your wallpaper. And let's say you're in a car accident and you have to talk to a lawyer right now. Boom, Robo-Lawyer appears. And Robo-Lawyer tells you what to do in case of a car accident. Robo-Professor, Robo-Doc, Robo-Lawyer will be in your wallpaper. So we're witnessing the digitalization of life, commerce, and capitalism itself. Look at music. Music was the first industry to be digitalized. The music industry said, "No, we will never go on the internet." Well, who controls the music industry today? Believe it or not, the company which controls the music industry today is Apple Computers through iTunes. What's the lesson? The lesson is, if you ignore this process, you will go bankrupt. You're free to ignore everything I've said. You're also free to go bankrupt. Or you can ride the wave to riches. This is the source of wealth of the future. What's being digitalized today? Today it's media, newspapers, books, magazines, movies, television. They're all being digitalized. What's next? What's next is transportation, medicine, and education. For example, this is your living room of the future. This is how you will relax in your living room. You'll be surrounded by intelligent screens. You'll have three-dimensional sports. You'll be right in the middle of a football game, right in the middle. Everything will be in 3 dimensions. This is also the future of your love life. Today, if it's Friday night, you're lonely and have no one to talk to, what do? Some people get stone drunk. Other people will go to the wall and say, "I'm lonely. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's available tonight?" Boom! All the faces of everyone who's also lonely will appear in your wallpaper. And this is the future of your love life. Then you will see a nice movie, a nice dinner. You'll come home and say, "Mirror, mirror on the wall. We want to see an old-fashioned movie like Casablanca, except remove Humphrey Bogart's face and put my face instead." You will be the hero of every action movie. This is the future of television. This is television of the future. 3D without glasses. This was once thought to be impossible, but we scientists figured it out. No glasses, full 3 dimensions. Here's how it works. The screen consists of thousands of vertical lines. Each vertical line is a prism, cuts the image in half. 1/2 to the left eye, 1/2 to the right eye, and boom, 3D without glasses. This is coming to your living room. And this is your office of the future. This is how you will work in the future. Notice that there's no PC. The only place where you will find the PC is in a museum. These are scrap computers. They cost a penny. You scribble on them and then throw them away. They only cost a penny. But when you go from room to room, the scribble follows you in the cloud. All your files, everything you write, will follow you in the cloud. And this is your cubicle of the future. This is how you will work. Your screen will be wraparound, 3-dimensional, full color. It'll be so beautiful, you will never get any work done in the future. This is the car of the future. The car of the future communicates with GPS and drives itself. And how will you give it instructions? Mentally. You will think, and tell the car where to go. In fact, how will you communicate with these computers? Mentally communicate with driverless cars. This already exists. And driverless cars are safer than ordinary cars, much safer. Watch for it in your garage in around 2020. Around 2020, we expect to have driverless cars, seamless transfer of information when you are driving. And this is the future of commerce. How will you buy things in the future? Today, if you're looking for a wedding dress, you finally found the perfect wedding dress. Right color, right shape, right everything except wrong size. What happens today? No sale. In the future, you will take out your credit card. Your credit card will have your precise 3D measurements and print out the perfect dress. And this is how we will celebrate Christmas in the future. Today, if you want that perfect toy for Christmas, you have to fight everybody else who wants that perfect toy for Christmas. In the future, you will download the blueprint on the internet and print it in your 3D printer. So 3D printers will print your Christmas presents in the future. So what is this building up to? Something called perfect capitalism. You will have infinite knowledge of everything you buy. When you walk into a store, your contact lens will scan everything, tell you exactly who has the cheapest product, who has the best product, everything right there in your contact lens. So the next industry to be digitalized is medicine. This is huge because people are getting older. We're going to have more and more people in the hospital. So let's ask a question. How small can you make a chip? We can make a chip so small, you could put it inside an aspirin pill with a TV camera and a magnet. You swallow it. You guide it with a magnet. It goes into your stomach, goes into your intestines. Because we all know what middle-aged men fear the most. Middle-aged men fear the C word, colonoscopy. That's when they put a tube up your rear. But this gives new meaning for the expression Intel inside. Intel will always be inside in the future. And even cancer will be attacked by nanoparticles. Nanoparticles that kill individual cancer cells. Now, in the next slide, we will see an invention which will eliminate tumors in the future. This next invention is incredible. The word tumor will disappear from the language. This incredible invention is your toilet. Your toilet of the future will have a chip in it. That chip will identify cancer genes 10 years before a tumor forms. Let's say you're a woman and you feel your breast and there's a lump and it's cancerous. At that point, it's too late. It's really too late. You have 10 billion cancer cells growing in your breast. Your breast has to be removed immediately. Surgery immediately. No ifs, ands, or buts. Your breast is gone. In the future, your toilet will say, "You have breast cancer. Do something." You have 10 years to do something. So the word tumor could disappear from our language. But you may say to yourself, in a hospital, they have huge MRI machines. But why? Because you have to have a uniform magnetic field. On the right is the world's smallest MRI machine, and it's the size of a briefcase. How small can you make an MRI machine? According to the laws of physics, you can make it this big. This is the future of medicine. In your cell phone, you will have the ability to see inside your body. You will talk to RoboDoc on the wall, and RoboDoc will say, "Get an MRI machine." You take out your cell phone with the power of an MRI machine. And what will we do with this information? We will first scan your genes. I had my genes scanned. BBC Television took my blood, sent it to Vanderbilt University, and they gave me a disc with most of my genes on it. And what will we do with this disc? This is an ear. It is made out of plastic. You put cells from your ear into the plastic. It grows into a perfect ear, and then the plastic dissolves. This is the future of medicine, a human body shop. On the left is bone. We can grow bone from your bone. On the right is cartilage, noses, ears. We can now grow skin, noses, ears, blood vessels, bone, and bladders. An entire bladder can now be grown from your own cells. Windpipes. An entire windpipe was grown from your own cells. Now, the next organ to be grown, is the liver. So, for all you alcoholics in the audience, for all you drunks in the audience, take hope. We will grow organs of the body. And the next organ is the brain. The brain, we can now analyze blood flow in the brain. And we can now see if certain superstitions are correct or not. For example, there is a superstition that when a man talks to a pretty girl, he starts to act stupid. It's true. Looking at blood flow in the brain, blood drains from the brain when a man sees a pretty girl and he starts to act retarded. It's true. We see that with brain scans. And we can now connect the mind to a machine. This man is totally paralyzed. We put a chip in his brain and we connected him to a computer. This man can now write email, read email, play video games, operate a wheelchair, operate household appliances, and he is paralyzed, totally paralyzed. This is my colleague, Stephen Hawking. He is paralyzed. So we put a chip in his glass, a chip in his glass. He can now communicate mentally using a chip in his glass. And if you saw the football games in Brazil, the World Cup games, who started the World Cup games? A man who was paralyzed like this, with an exoskeleton connected to his brain. He started the World Cup games in Brazil. Artificial arms, artificial legs, exoskeletons controlled by the mind. This is what is possible. So we are talking about exoskeletons controlled by the mind. And in Japan, we already have headbands that you wear to parties that read your thoughts. In Japan, the headband has 2 ears on it. When you talk to somebody who's interesting, the headband lights up like this. If you talk to someone who's interesting. If you talk to someone who's boring, your ears go like that. So in the future, you will always know if you're going to go home alone at night after a party. They read your thoughts. We can also create pacemakers for the brain. Memories can now be recorded. Last year, for the first time in history, we recorded a memory, inserted the memory back, and the animal remembered the memory. We can now record memories. We can record thoughts, can now be recorded. This means that one day we may have the Matrix. One day we may have the ability to record entire thoughts into the mind. We can also photograph thoughts. These thoughts are recorded on an MRI scan on the left. A computer analyzes the MRI scan and prints out a picture. So on the top, we have the picture. On the bottom, we have the picture created by a computer, which reads your mind. These computers can now photograph a dream. We once thought that dreams can never be photographed. Now we can do it. At Berkeley, we've now perfected the technology of recording thoughts and recording dreams. And one day, we will control robots mentally. This could be the future of the space program. In the future, we will put astronauts on the moon, robot astronauts. The real astronaut is on Earth, controlling the robot via remote control. These are called surrogates or avatars. This is also the future of education. So many people miss school when they're sick. In the future, you will have an avatar. You will have a surrogate. It will attend class. You will never miss a day of school. The teacher will always know where you are because your avatar, your surrogate, is sitting in your chair. Isn't the future wonderful? You will never be able to cut class again. True robots, however, have been too difficult to create. However, robots in the hospital are a definite possibility. So robot nurses is where you're going to see robots of the future. And also, let me conclude on the following note. What does all this mean? It means that we are headed toward perfect capitalism. And in perfect capitalism, intellectual capitalism becomes more important than commodity capitalism. Tony Blair likes to say that England derives more revenue from rock and roll than it does the coal mining industry. Think about that. Look at food. Food is a commodity. Today you had breakfast that the King of Spain could not have had 100 years ago. That's how cheap food is today. So commodities are getting cheaper and cheaper every year. But intellectual capital, computers, science, art, music, intellectual capitalism is becoming more and more valuable. So who will be rich and who will be poor in the future? The countries which will be poor in the future are countries which only rely on commodities like food. Food is getting cheaper and cheaper every year. But intellectual capital, the power of the mind, is becoming more and more precious, more and more expensive. And that's why Colombia is at a crossroads. Colombia can leap into the future, but only if it understands the relationship between commodity capital and intellectual capital. So for Colombia, what is the lesson? First, education. We must educate people for the future. The future is going to be more scientific, not less scientific. First is education for Colombia. Second, we must allow entrepreneurs, innovators, scientists, engineers, businessmen to flourish in the future, to create new industries, new Silicon Valleys, innovation, entrepreneurs, to create industries to hire more workers. That's number two. Three, the government has to get out of the way. The response of politicians is tax, 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 regulate, 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 okay? That's not the way to create wealth. Wealth has to be encouraged. Wealth has to have a nudge. We have to have less regulation, not more regulation, to allow companies to flourish, to create jobs, because that's where the jobs of the future are going to come from. And fourth, the nature of the jobs will change. Less farming and more intellectual capital, the capital of the mind. We must have both. We have to have food, metals, commodities, oil, but we also have to liberate ourselves with the power of the mind, because capitalism itself is changing from commodity capital to intellectual capital. Now, let me end on let me say another thing. Some people say that we are too connected today. We spend all our time on the cell phone. That's a bad thing. I don't think so. Because 100 years ago, when the telephone was first invented, people were afraid. They said the telephone is evil. We will spend all our time talking to a machine rather than people. And the critics were right. The telephone, we do spend too much time on the telephone. The telephone is mechanical. However, we love it. We love it because it expanded our universe from 10 people to 100 people. Now with the internet expands our circle from 100 people to 1 billion people. And who fears the internet the most? The people who fear the internet the most are dictatorships. They fear the internet because the internet is the voice of democracy, the voice of the people. People realize they don't have to live under a dictatorship anymore, and one by one, dictators are being thrown out, creating democracy, where we have Twitter, and where we have Facebook, and where we have the internet. And remember, democracies do not war with other democracies. Wars are mainly fought by kings, queens, emperors, and dictators, never between two major democracies. So with the spreading of the internet comes the spreading of peace, a message of empowerment, a message of science, technology, and education. And now let me end on one last story. When I was a child, I had a role model. My role model was Albert Einstein. And here's my favorite Einstein story. When Einstein was an old man, he was tired of giving the same talk over and over again. So one day, his chauffeur came up to him, and the chauffeur said, "Professor, I'm really a part-time actor. I've heard your speech so many times, I've memorized it. So why don't we switch places? I will put on a mustache. I will put on a wig. I will be the great Einstein, and you can put on my chauffeur's clothing and be my chauffeur." Well, Einstein loved the joke, so they switched places. This went along famously until one day, a mathematician in the back asked a very difficult question. And Einstein thought, oh, the game is up. But then the chauffeur said, "That question is so elementary that even my chauffeur here can answer it for you." So thank you very much. You've been a great audience. Thank you for the opportunity to come to Cali. Thank you for the opportunity to give you the message of the future. A message of hope, a message of democracy, a message of freedom, a message that you can take home. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.